Hello guys, welcome to Xbox On, your home for everything from Xbox UK on YouTube. I'm Leah and I'll be your guide today as we take a trip all the way back to Raccoon City with a little look at the remake of Resident Evil 2. Please keep all hands and legs inside the vehicle. Some of the residents can get a little bitey.
What the?
It's been almost 20 years since Umbrella Corp's decline began in the original release, and you'd be forgiven for seeing the word remake and assuming maybe there's been a graphical overhaul and a bit of polish added and not much else. You'd be forgiven, but you'd be very wrong. Capcom have redesigned the game from the ground up, creating an altogether new gameplay experience for newcomers and old fans alike, while staying faithful to the original story and vibe. If you played the recent 7th Resident Evil installment, you may recognize the vibe going on here. Resi 7 was an incredible game combining action-adventure, puzzle, and horror in disgusting and neat ways. The gameplay's consistency was a contrast to the story's untiring efforts at keeping you guessing in inventive ways, with twists and turns oozing out of every possible orifice. While the remake doesn't necessarily tread new grounds, the story is largely the same as the OG, that doesn't lessen its impact as a returning player. It's almost as if the story is being seen through new eyes. The main thing you might notice is the way the new camera perspective completely changes just about every experience with the game. The original took advantage of a fixed camera where you would only see very specific angles depending on your position. You had a gameplay experience crafted with this in mind: shadows creeping past windows that you couldn't miss, chase scenes that took advantage of the narrow view to help build tension, and the knowledge of that unavoidable monster hiding behind a corner that you couldn't slowly creep around. The remake shakes this up. You're exploring in third person with freedom over what you're looking at and when. So the game has to reflect this by directing you in the right path with more subtle techniques, like focused lighting to point you the right way. Gruesome sounds surround you and echo down the corridors, and your hands start sweating, thinking about what's lurking in that room you haven't checked yet. You inch the door open slowly and immediately nope out of there at the sight of some grotesque, drippy freak who wants to eat your face.
Are you kidding me? Get off of me!
New angles are available for the devs to make your survival harder. Thanks guys. Creatures crawl on the ceiling and drop down on you, leaving you wondering if that shriek you just heard was from the game or if it actually just came out of your own mouth. Much of this is of course standard in gaming in 2018, but it alters a game that many remember as a favourite nostalgic experience and does not simply remake it, but modernizes it to appeal to a crowd who might have missed it the first time around. Gunplay is heavily affected by this change of perspective. Third-person over-the-shoulder view means there's more of an emphasis on aiming, and aiming well. In the original, you had a fixed view and had the option to shoot high or low, but there was no aim skill needed. Now, your survival depends on your ability to be precise under pressure, with an ever-dwindling ammo count. And sometimes the zombies become something from the Matrix, dodging each shot with eerie precision. Inventory management is something that, through every overhaul in the franchise, has managed to stay fairly consistent. Item management is a big part of the survival horror package. You have to decide if you really want that 2-slot weapon over that healing herb, but you just know you're going to get mauled by a bitey boy and left in a critical condition if you leave that herb behind. And if you keep this vital ammo crafting supply on your person, you can't take this vital key. But once you've used the key and got through the room, you have no ammo to fight the boys behind the door. It's a delicate balance that adds to the tension, and it does it well. The system has slowly been perfected over the franchise's history. Limited ammo, resources, and healing, and the decisions over what to leave behind all create an intensity that is dependent on you and your choices, no pressure. Luckily, for the hoarders among us, there are crates hanging around in safe rooms where you can store unneeded items and pick them up in the future. But it's a risk to leave something behind when it might be the one thing you need to save your life when you're miles from the safe room. Crafting offers opportunity for a bit more mayhem. Combining different ingredients will create interesting outcomes for healing, ammo, and more. I accidentally made some acid ammo from my grenade launcher, which did a lovely job of chewing up zombies, and then I made some SMG ammo when I didn't have an SMG, which wasted precious resources. Ammo is scarce too, not so scarce that you're forced into melee combat unless you're very wasteful, but enough so that you'll be considering each shot and thinking creatively when faced by the more spatially challenged mutants. Using the grenades is a bit weird, maybe a throwback to jankier control schemes. You have to prime it with the left bumper and throw with the right trigger, which took me longer than I'd care to admit to figure out. There are other controller-based throwbacks, including the ability to do a 180 spin to face behind you, something that I generally forget about in the heat of the moment, annoyingly when it would be most useful. The graphics are understandably a large talking point. The game is not only updated, but a lot of the characters have had remodeling. Take the Tyrant, originally known as Mr. X, for example. He's this omnipresent, terrifying figure who you can't fight, you can only run from. His model has changed to match more with the Resident Evil 1.5 character concepts, including a snazzy little hat. Where there were originally graphical constraints due to working around all those pixel and file size limitations, these days realism is in vogue, and we have systems powerful enough to run and create incredibly detailed scenes, like the Xbox One X. Character designs like Ada and Claire have changed slightly, but noticeably, to reflect more modern aesthetics, while throwing back to the 1.5 sketches. The big deal is, of course, the enemies. From T-series zombies to G-series mutants, they're all more fearsome and gross than ever. The Tyrant is a huge, stomping, swinging nightmare that looks a bit like Deadpool's Colossus, but meaner, and he's probably the nicest looking of the bunch. I managed to dodge his massive arms once by accident, but if you get caught in a narrow corridor, you might as well just lay down and accept your terrible failure. The zombies are truly disgusting, and often they just don't die. You'll hear them through the walls and they'll play dead before rising, dripping and shuffling towards you. Shooting them in the face will rip chunks of their dead flesh away, and with enough bullets, they'll sometimes hit the floor and be still before rising again a minute later. Exploding their heads is pretty nasty, but it's the only way to make sure these boys stay down. And typically the more stressed you are by their insistence to eat your brains, the more you miss. One of the cooler features is when you're caught by a zombie. If you have a knife in your inventory, you'll use that to stab and stagger it. If you have no knife, you'll automatically use anything at your disposal and shove it in the zombie's mouth. Grenades are pretty effective. As the zombie staggers back, you can actually shoot the grenade and blow the whole thing to pieces. It's satisfying. One step up from the zombies are the iconic Lickers. Meaner, faster, and creepier than ever, Lickers will crash down from ceilings and speed along the floor on all fours, absorbing a huge amount of damage on the way. You know when you were a kid and you'd turn the lights off at home and you'd perform a running jump, tucking in all your legs and arms into the duvet to stay safe from the things under the bed? Lickers are the ultimate worst-case scenario of that imaginary monster. 4-foot tongue, huge claws, and a tendency to wait until the most tense moment to drop down on you. Imagine that thing licking your toe when you're all cozied up at night. Happy nightmares. The rows of teeth and exposed brain and all that external muscular structure are all very distracting when you try and survive, and most of the time I found myself hitting them with fire rounds from my grenade launcher to avoid wasting too much ammo, which usually did the trick. I kinda use the grenade launcher for everything else too, but that's beside the point. There are, of course, other mutants, but we aren't allowed to tell you too much right now, so you get to experience it all firsthand when you play. But there's no shortage of delightful terrors waiting for you in the depths of Raccoon City, and we can tell you that the alligator makes an explosive return. The map is very similar to what fans might remember, but with subtle enhancements and a few new areas and alterations to explore. For older fans, there is a brand new area called Orphanage. Again, you'll get to experience this firsthand, not allowed to give too much away, but we can tell you that Sherry Birkin is a feature of this segment. But you'll be able to see everything for yourself on release in January 2019 on the Xbox One. The game is Xbox One X enhanced, meaning you'll be getting the best graphical experience possible with the Xbox One X's awesome hardware. We hope you enjoyed this breakdown of everything we've seen of the Resident Evil 2 remake. Leave a sub if you're new and you want to see more from us. Comment below if you enjoyed the video or if you're excited for the game. And thanks very much for watching. Hopefully we'll see you next time. Bye!